Hey there, it's Rachel Mullins, the host of Hashtag No Filter Fridays on Public House Media.
What's up, everybody? This is Christian Heimel, host of Press Row here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Press Row, where we talk about the biggest issues in sports with the analysts, experts, and reporters who cover them. No nonsense, hard-hitting interviews on the sports topics you're talking about. A new show comes out every single Thursday. And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Press Row. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Beauties and Headcanons, where we're nerdy, and you probably are too. So I apologize for those of you who are used to our weekly episodes that we did not have an episode last week. I'm sorry you guys didn't get your weekly B&H medicine there, but we are back with our bi-weekly episodes, and for our first one, we wanted to cover some new introductions that are going to be happening in the MCU, especially with the new shows that is going to be coming out on Disney Plus at some point. We wanted to cover a few of them specifically because they were characters that have not previously been featured or, as far as I know, even mentioned in any of the movies or shows in the MCU thus far. But before we do that, I'm gonna turn it over to Lindsay really quick for her Geek on Fleek.
All right, so for Geek on Fleek this week, I was thinking about how the weather has been changing here in the Midwest. We now have fall-like weather. Although yesterday was a thunderstorm, and I swear thunderstorms are like springtime-ish. But I was thinking about, all those things that happen in the fall. And so, a lot of us are obsessing over pumpkin spice, and you see the memes about how IPAs are just pumpkin spice lattes for white dudes, and I was really having a lot of fun just Googling what I wanted to talk about. And an article came up, someone had blogged about how to make a geek fall in love with you. And I thought this was hilarious because the things that they list are your normal things that you would do to really enhance any relationship, I guess. And don't get me wrong, I'm not thinking especially about relationships at this point, but I thought it was fun the way that it was worded. People have blogs and podcasts and video blogs and TikToks about and for and everything. There's just everything out there. So I thought it was funny that the things she lists about what you need to do in order to get a geek fall in love with you was so exceptionally basic, but written well. So the lady who wrote this, it's on Vix.com, VIX.com, and she talks, just like everyone who calls himself a geek or talks about geeks, it's always geared towards geeks. So they talk about you don't have to, dress up as a Star Wars character to get a geek fall in love with you. Anyway, her name is Veronica Lopez. And it's called 5 Ways to Make Any Geek Fall for You. And I think it's hilarious. So you guys should definitely go check it out. But the first one would be to learn about their passions. Go figure.
I know,
Any
right?
relationship, you should be familiar with your partner's likes and dislikes.
Well, yeah.
And I mean, this is kind of funny because I've seen people who are together. I've been with people who I didn't have a whole lot of similar passions or interests with them. So it's often wondered how I ever ended up with them. But the relationships where you do have things in common always are, the better ones. But it says that with a geek, that's even more important because they're so passionate about their interests that it will consume their lives. You don't have to be obsessed with video games, but knowing your crush's favorites doesn't hurt either. Right. Okay. Common sense. Sure.
Well, yeah.
Number 2. Ask them for help with something you know they know about. Now, I am so guilty of this because when it is someone that I'm with or interested in or talking to, and this could also be like part of like being a good person though, being a human, because of course if your crush is geeking out over tech or, you know, is a big computer person, you're going to want to ask them for computer stuff. And I have been guilty of like asking a pharmacist extra information about a chemotherapy drug because I wanted to, you know, pick their brain and let them talk. And then everybody knew I was flirting with them, but whatever. Needless to say, sure, you would want to ask them about something that they're passionate about because then they'll talk to you for a long time about it. And then, I don't know, hopefully the conversation would go better. You know, then the funny part about this is, though, it says, as a thank you, you can take them out for coffee. Mm-hmm. Sure. Number 3, find your inner geek. Geek culture is huge and spans all sorts of interests. I mean, I could write this stuff. Even if you don't think you can be as passionate as a geek is, you could find your inner geek. Find your thing that you're passionate about. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've met anybody who isn't passionate about something, even if it isn't like a stereotypical geek thing. They're always passionate about something.
There are people out there who are not geeky. Like, they just go about their lives I'm terribly passionate and like, I don't know. I know people who are like really good with their hands and they work really hard and they do things, but ask them like what they're interested in and it's like a really short list of not a whole lot of anything.
Well, like I know one of my friends is like super, super passionate about like kayaking. She doesn't really get into tech or movies or comic books or anything like that, but kayaking is like her thing. Like when the weather starts getting warm enough, she is just out. She's out there on the river, you know, going places and like hanging out, having little bonfires in the woods and stuff like that. Like that is her thing. She is, you know, invested some money in like getting some really good kayaks and paddles and equipment and stuff, you know? So it's like, I would consider that even though it's not like a stereotypical geek thing, I would definitely consider that, you know, she's geeky about that.
Well, and we've had talks before where we've talked about how you can geek out about anything. And like, you can look a geek on Facebook and find a makeup geek. Like, it's a thing. I get it. And there are people who, you know, their business is light bulbs and they, you know, a lot of their life is entrenched by light bulbs, and you could think of like a philosophical way that is a thing, but maybe they just sell light bulbs, and that would be something to geek out about too, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so number 4, find an original gift or gesture for your crush. And this one actually, like, I totally get, because I don't like getting gifts for Christmas that are generic, they didn't even think about me kinds of gifts.
Like, I'd rather you get me nothing or just get me money so I can get my own thing.
Exactly. Give me some cash and I'll get something I want, unless you're really going to put some thought into it and get me something that's clear that you actually thought about me for the gift.
Yeah.
And then number 5 is, this is the funny part, forget the word geek. So essentially, it's, you know, a person who is a geek doesn't want to be called a geek, which I think is outdated and old anyway. So that was an interesting thing that I read about how you make a geek fall in love with you. I mean, essentially all the people who I know who are geeky about something, and so are the people that are with them. But interesting nonetheless. So we are talking today about the Marvel characters that have been announced that we don't know anything about. And the cool part about this episode is I literally know nothing about them. We've talked in our show recently, or in the past, about characters that, and our history with Marvel, our history with fandoms, and how I myself didn't really get into it until the movie started. And so the very limited comic immersion that I have had has been very, very limited. So I picked up 1 or 2 comic books of Captain Marvel, but the new one, not the old one. And so this is all really confusing to me and absolutely the craziest thing. I actually was told that there's a character that they may or may not have announced with Captain Marvel being that's the one that I'm going to ask you about later.
Okay.
But really just blows my mind. I am excited, but also kind of scared because, we've gotten to love these Marvel characters and they are such an integrated part of our lives. And now we know that there's going to be this shift. Say what you will about contracts and all these other things that are currently going on for the sake of money, but they have this plethora of stuff to pull from and to make their own with the MCU. And we are right at the precipice of a whole bunch of things about to happen, and we have no idea how they're going to do it or make it happen. And surprisingly, YouTube has been very quiet about all of these things. I get updates on stuff that I would be interested in all the time, and I've gotten no updates lately.
Yeah.
So, what's the first character we're going to talk about?
So there's 3 characters in total that were fairly recently announced. They were just announced last month that they're going to get their own shows on Disney Plus, and now we don't know anything more other than the characters themselves, obviously. So we don't know how. As far as I know, we don't have a cast or anything. We don't know the style of the show or anything like that. We just know the names. So we have Moon Knight, we have She-Hulk, and we have Ms. Marvel. This is not going to be Carol Danvers. This is a completely separate character. So, and I love that Marvel is now bringing in these other characters. I wouldn't go so far as to say that they're minor characters because they have their own issues, they have their own comics and everything like that. But, in the realm of Marvel where, there's Captain America and Iron Man and Spider-Man and, they could be considered more minor characters because they aren't as big or well known. Even though most of them have actually been around for a while. Moon Knight has actually been around since 1975.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he's been around for a long time. And obviously, especially if a character's been around for a while, their origin is kind of, messed around with and worked with and reworked and rebooted or retconned or, what have you. But
sure.
The current version of him he is Marc Spector, who he actually has 2 secret identities. He has a millionaire that he portrays, and then he's also a cab driver. So he's like Batman, but also completely different than Batman. I know a lot of people like to compare him to Batman, and I guess some things fit, but he actually does have superpowers. So I kind of shy away from comparing him to somebody like Batman. But he was a mercenary. Marc Spector was a mercenary. He encountered this ancient Egyptian god of the moon named Khonshu, who bestowed his power on him. So he's kind of like this avatar kind of figure. And he gets super strength and durability and stuff like that. Nothing super crazy, but just, a little bit special and enhanced. And obviously, since he has the powers of a moon god, his powers wax and wane with the moon. So if the moon is full, he's at full strength. If the moon is a new moon, then, his powers are not that strong anymore. The really interesting thing about Moon Knight that I really love, and now this, depending on the writer, they have addressed this all differently, but he openly struggles with mental illness. Sometimes it's kind of non-definitive, his struggle, and, what it all is. Sometimes he is portrayed more of having schizophrenia or something like that, and then there are other times where he's written where he actually has full-blown dissociative identity disorder, which, for those of you who aren't super in the medical geek realm, that is, you would probably recognize it as multiple personality disorder, but we don't call it that anymore. So that is, I think, a really interesting aspect of Moon Knight is that he, fights crime and he does all of this, but he also, is also fighting with his own mind. I know at one point he's, talking with Khonshu, his god, but the way it's written, you don't know if he's actually talking with Khonshu or if it's possibly just all in his head. So I think it would be really interesting to kind of explore something like that, especially akin to I don't know if anybody's heard of the game Senua's Sacrifice. I got to play that a little bit last month with the Xbox Game Pass. And I didn't get like too far into it, but it's almost like creepy in a way where you're going through and there's all these whispers that all of a sudden come up, and then you'll start to hallucinate little things on the screen, and it's kind of mind-bending, but it's also really cool. I think that would almost translate well to a TV show if they were to incorporate a theme like that.
What would be cool too is I'm always thinking about like who they're going to cast or how that person's going to do that character, and that would be really interesting to even speculate on, because
I mean, they would have to get somebody who is really good at portraying different sides of a character, because not somebody who is just going to play like a one-note character, if you know what I mean. Because, I mean, some actors do that, and they're great at it, and that's fine, We need actors who do that, but we also need actors who have range, and Marc Spector is definitely somebody that we need an actor who has a good range with.
Yes. Do we know if this is going to be live action or if it's animated?
As far as I've seen, it seems like these series are going to be live action. I haven't seen technically anything either way, but as far as I've seen it, they're supposed to be live action, I guess.
Okay, very cool. All right, so who's next? She-Hulk?
She-Hulk. Now, this was one that I particularly love, along with Moon Knight, because when it was announced that they were giving a series to She-Hulk, there were all these butthurt fanboys that were like, oh, there's a female Thor, now there's going to be a female Hulk, like, when's it going to stop? And it's like, y'all, Jennifer Walters has been around since 1980. Her character is probably older than you. Sit down, please. Yes. Like, she's not this one-off character. She's her own thing. She's had her own comics. She's not like a replacement character to stand in for like Bruce Banner. Jennifer is actually his cousin who, or she was a lawyer and she didn't have any kind of superpowers or anything like that. And she was in an accident. She needed a blood transfusion. And the only one, I guess, available that was going to be compatible was her cousin Bruce. So, you would think that gamma-radiated blood would kill you, but apparently in her case, it was all A-okay, and she just got superpowers from it. So, there you go. There's the world of Marvel.
Sounds like a pretty good deal to me.
I know, right? I mean, her powers are, like, milder than Bruce's. She, because when Bruce hulks out and turns into the Hulk, he typically loses, like, his personality, his intelligence, and things like that. But Jennifer actually fully retains everything when she changes.
Okay.
And at one point, she was having problems with her transformation. And at the end of that little story arc, she actually opted to do something to actually make her transformation permanent. So now she's just, like, permanently big and bulky and green. But she's still herself, and she's still super smart, and she's a lawyer, and I'm thinking, like, if you ever were to walk into court and see that on the opposing side, like, how intimidating would that be?
Does she actually practice law, like, green?
Yeah, she is a defense lawyer.
Huh.
Yep. So that kind of makes me wonder if she, especially in her show, like, if she would ever have any, like, walk-ons or cameos with other MCU characters that have had, kind of their own little shows, kind of like Jessica Jones or maybe like Matt Murdock. I don't know if,
Be like an Avengers law firm.
Yeah. I think that would be really cool, but...
The Defenders Esquire?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that would be neat. And I kind of wonder, like, if they'll play into that lawyer thing during this series, or if it will be... much more focused on superhero stuff. I don't know. Yeah. Or if maybe they'll balance it out, and maybe it'll be like balancing, your real life with your super life.
Right.
Okay. It could work.
Fair enough. Can you tell me a little bit about Hulkling? Do you know anything about that? I was told that Captain Marvel, they've announced that Hulkling might be a part of the next movie in a way. But all the information I'm getting seems to be that Hulkling is like part Kree, part Skrull, child of Captain Marvel from the comic books and someone else. I was like,
yeah,
what?
he's a separate character. He's not really related to Hulk at all that I know of. But yeah, he's basically supposed to be like a super Skrull. And so he has like all these shape-shifting abilities and stuff like that. And he's actually pretty interesting. The funny little side note there was a certain issue with Hulkling and another guy kissing on the cover, and that particular issue was banned in Brazil because it was seen as obscene. And so there was a YouTuber that bought up all the issues and distributed them for free in Brazil.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was really awesome.
Okay, so let's talk about Ms. Marvel.
Ms. Marvel, not the Carol Danvers Ms. Marvel, but Kamala Khan Ms. Marvel. She's a Pakistani American, and she was the first Muslim character to have their own comic book. She was introduced in 2013, but she got her own like little run in 2014. So this is actually like the most recent character that they're going to be putting in the series. Like, Moon Knight and She-Hulk was, from the 70s and 80s, but Kamala Khan didn't come out until 2013, 2014. So this was a really cool character. She is she's an Inhuman. She has Inhuman genes. And so, like, she kind of came out after the whole Inhumanity arc had started out. And she was, like, really, really passionate about, like, superheroes and stuff like that. And she really idolized and loved Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers. And so when she kind of, got her own powers and was kind of creating her own identity, she took on the name Ms. Marvel to kind of, give her a little homage. Because, she was like her idol. So that's what she did. So she has a little shape-shifting abilities, but it's not shape-shifting like Mystique, like she can change her total appearance. It's kind of a little bit more like Mr. Fantastic, where she like can morph her body into different shapes, if that makes sense. And she also has like a little healing factor to help her out. She was the first Muslim superhero character to get their own arc, and I thought that was obviously like really cool to have not only a woman of character, a woman of color, but also, a woman that is not like inherently like Christian or, atheistic or something like that. Somebody who is obviously proud of their religion and who is also featured as a superhero. Because, I think that's just awesome to like, explore all of these elements, what it can mean to, be Muslim and be a superhero. As it is, I'm sure like there are other heroes out there who they kind of explore their own like spirituality or their own religious beliefs in their own way. This was kind of a way to explore their own way. And the really cool thing about her costume is it's one big callback to the original Carol Danvers Ms. Marvel costume. Because when Carol Danvers was Ms. Marvel, she wore this black unitard with a lightning bolt across it. And I think when she became Captain Marvel, that's when they kind of reverted to the red and blue with the gold star stripe symbol for her. But it was originally that yellow lightning bolt. And so on Kamala Khan's uniform, she has the red and blue, but she has that yellow lightning bolt to kind of as a callback to the original Ms. Marvel design. And I thought that was really cool that they put that in there, because and she's basically like a geek that has found out that, oh yeah, I'm a superhero too. So, it's like if you found out you were a superhero and you were, super into, something geeky, then wouldn't you kind of fashion yourself after that in a way?
And it looks like she might have gotten her superpowers from some kind of accident or something.
Because it activated her. It does
state that she was a fangirl to start with, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, because it, basically the Inhuman genes have to be like triggered in them. And so...
so they're dormant until something happens.
Yeah.
Got it.
So kind of like the X gene, except instead of just aging and puberty or a stressful event triggering it, it has to be something a little different. So... Oh,
I just learned something.
Very so cool. There's actually like a gas that if people who have inhuman genes are exposed to it, then their inhuman abilities will come out. And a normal human, like, won't have any real reaction to it, but an inhuman will basically turn into what they're supposed to be.
Okay. Awesome.
So, yeah. Oh, and one more little fun fact about Ms. Marvel. The very first volume of her own comic book of Ms. Marvel won the Hugo Award for the Best Graphic Story in 2015.
Cool.
Yeah. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I mean that's like really, really substantial for a comic book to win that kind of an honor.
What I think is really cool about this is that we've talked in the past about, having characters, superheroes out there that you can see yourself within. Mm-hmm. And all three of these are different and in a good way and mm-hmm. in different ways than what we're used to seeing. So this is really kind of cool.
Yeah, it goes against the whole just white male aesthetic that,
right.
Unfortunately, that is unfortunately just kind of permeated throughout, comics and culture in general. And I mean, for good reason, because, back in the day, I mean, the comic writers weren't allowed to make a whole lot of comic books about women, right. about people of color, about, people who were different. And so, they kind of had to rebel against that a little bit especially when they made X-Men. They kind of raised Charles Xavier up to be Martin Luther King Jr. They raised Magneto to be like a Malcolm X character to kind of, help portray the civil rights movement in that era. So, right. Obviously, you find ways around stuff, but it's really cool that these days, they can really like actually dive in and make these characters and make them look and be like the more diverse group of people that, you can find throughout the world.
Exactly. All right. How about for Gaming Corner this week?
For Gaming Corner, I don't know what is going on because, okay, when I first got my Xbox One, I got it expressly for the purpose of getting Skyrim Special Edition so that I could mod on my console, and I knew my husband was going to want Arkham Knight. So I pretty much got it for like 2 games, and I was like, you know what, whatever, it's worth it. I'll have a lot of fun. And now there's all these games that are coming out, and I am just like, what is going on here? Why do I suddenly want all these games? Greedfall just dropped this week, and I've been watching a lot of gameplay on that, and it looks like a lot of fun. I always like to kind of wait and see what a game's going to be like before I purchase it. And so far, I mean, it looks like it might just be worth the money. So, I'm going to have to see how I might can adjust the budget or something and get that. But next month, then I have The Outer Worlds coming out next month. And I've heard that kind of described as like Fallout in space, which some people are like, oh, why would I want to play Fallout in space? And I'm like, that's a good selling point for me. So, you're just convincing me more that I want this. Whereas Greedfall is like Dragon Age Inquisition and The Witcher and Fable had a baby. And then, of course, Cyberpunk 2077 is coming out next year, and I'm like, okay, gaming companies, y'all need to stop, because these games coming out, they're looking too good, and I don't have the money to just get everything here, so y'all need to calm it down. Calm it down, okay. But yeah, so I've been watching a lot of Greedfall lately, and I am just really, really excited. I've only seen a couple of like kind of minor technical issues, like mouths not quite matching up to what they're saying.
Okay.
I mean, from the looks of it, there's tons and tons of side quests, which I really love because that's one of the things that people kind of rag on Dragon Age 2 about because there's not a whole lot of side quests. It's hard to just get completely immersed in the world because it's like as soon as you start to get immersed in the world, then it's like, oh, yeah, okay, it's over. And so the more side quests and the more things to do, I absolutely totally love and dig because, okay, cool. Now I can get really, really into the world and I can enjoy myself and I can have a good time and, not rush and just have fun. So, yeah, eagerly awaiting the day that I can get it now.
So with that is all we have for this week's episode. Please let us know if you guys missed us last week, because we definitely missed you, but we're glad to be back. And just as a reminder, we will be doing every other week episodes. So you get to hear from us this week, but not next week, and then the week afterwards. We'd love to know what you'd like to hear about and what you'd love to have us talk about. So let us know on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. And with that, I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Elisabeth, and thanks for getting nerdy with us today on Beauties and Headphones.